now I've met a number of heads of state now, and it's like there's some people who I don't know if it's their aura, like I don't know what it is. I don't know if your aura changes when you become that powerful, or I don't know. But he has, like, you can almost think he's like glows. It's like I met my president and you could think he glows.
There's a presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So for the benefit of those who are watching who have no idea what we're talking about, we're doing analysis of Kanye West, because my guest is a huge fan of Kanye's, right? I literally, I was messaging you the day his new album came out, and you're literally like, I can't talk, I'm busy. I'm like, busy doing what? I'm listening to Kanye's album.
No, I'm going to tell you. So I did an interview with Forbes last weekend, and literally like the first 10 minutes I was talking about Pusha T. And the guy's in Brussels, and he's probably like, Pusha who? He didn't know what I was talking about. I'm like, let's talk about energy, whatever. I just want to talk about Daytona.
Speaking of Forbes, so I'll use this as a way to introduce you. Like, you were named one of Forbes' top 30 most promising entrepreneurs. Yay. Like, tell me about the moment that they told you that.
Well, no, they didn't tell me. I just like saw the article came out, and I was looking at it, and I was just kind of like, I don't know that person, I don't know that person. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my name. And I freaked. I called my girlfriend Ladia, who makes this jewelry, plug for Yambala Designs, in New York. And I was like, oh my God, we're in Forbes. Like, I was freaking, and we just like screamed on the phone for like 20 minutes. And of course my daughter's like, well, what the hell's wrong with you, lady? So I told her, and my daughter's like, let's go buy it. Let's go buy it. Let's go to Indigo. Like, where is it? And I'm like, baby, it's not in the print one. She'd only seen like the 400, like the billionaire one. I'm like, baby, we got a long way to go. We're not in that one yet. But no, I freaked out. I like text all my siblings like 911, which I realized don't do, because, even when it's like good news, they're like, you nearly killed me with the 911. I'm like, okay, good 911. So we were just excited. Yeah. But then after, like, a day after, so I was like, okay, well, like, now what am I going to do? My brother's like, this is a big deal. Like, it's really, you're going to see it's a big deal. And I was kind of like, well, it's an honor or whatever. My brother's like, just wait, it's a big deal. And it's opened a lot of doors for us. Well, so you're here.
I'm here. Why don't we start with, okay, first of all, tell us your name, because everybody's like, who is this woman? And tell me what it is she does. Although I know a lot of people know who you are, but
I'm not famous, so it's okay.
Those people who don't know, tell me who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, my name's Lucia Bakulumpagi-Wamala. I am the founder and CEO of Bakulu Power. It is a renewable energy service company based in Uganda, which is where I'm from. But when it's funny, people see the name Bakulumpagi and they expect me to be like speaking Gosa or something. Like, they're like, then they see me and I have like a North American accent. They're like, wait, huh? But I'm like, people move,
So tell me about Bakulu Power, and why is it power, not energy?
That's a good question. I just thought power is power. It's more powerful. It's kind of funny, like kind of real stories. Remember in the beginning, actually the first name was Gray Crane Power Holdings. And my brother kept with it. Now that was the worst name. Like, what kind of domain name is that? Like, Lucia, great. I thought it was horrible. But I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Thankfully, the registrar rejected it in Uganda. And
why did they reject it?
Because like the crested crane is our national bird. It's kind of like naming something maple leaf here.
Okay.
It's too common. So then it was like, okay, I'm like, well, why don't we use our last name? Like, a lot of people do that. And I always, like, growing up, went by Wamala, because Bakulumpagi-Wamala is just too long for anybody. But Wamala is a very common name in Uganda. So again, the register rejected that. Then I was like, what about Bakulu? But then my brother was kind of like, Bakulu Power sounds so like, cool power, Like, I'm like, no, if you think of it that way, like our logo won't be like an afro with like a pick in it. Nothing wrong with that. But like, I just thought Bakulu Power just sounds more powerful than Bakulu Energy.
And so what does Bakulu Power do?
Our core line of business is minigrids. So we do renewable energy systems. So a minigrid, I don't know if people may not know what a minigrid is.
I was going to say, I'm sitting here nodding along, but I'm like, what is a minigrid?
Well, minigrid, it's like, like you go out to your neighborhood, wherever you are, and you'll see like the wires and literally cables that bring you electricity. A mini grid is just like that for a smaller area. You know, like normally you think of like the national grid, which is, you know, for a bigger area, it's just for a smaller area.
Right.
So I talk about mini grids a lot because I think a lot of our problems in Africa and even in parts of Asia is that these areas without electricity are far away. They're very remote, and it's very expensive to bring the national grid. I think it was somewhere in, I think it was Mozambique. I shouldn't tell a story if I'm not giving the right numbers, but it was like hundreds of millions of dollars to extend the grid, which, you know, most governments, well, no government will pay for that. So mini grid's just easier. You just put that grid for that area. Like, you know, we're in Toronto, it's where we're filming, we both live in Toronto. Like, you could just have a grid for just the Yonge and Eglinton area. That's what a mini grid is.
And how did you get into power? Like, how did you get into mini grids and building mini grids?
I didn't even think it's funny because if you asked me a couple years ago, I didn't know what a mini grid was either. I used to hear people say microgrid, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's very different. So, you know, and I Google, I didn't know much about it. Gosh, you know, sometimes it's when people ask me this a lot, and you'd think I'd have like a really smooth answer, and I don't. And someone once pointed out to me why. They're like, because that time in my life was very turbulent. So my memory of it is very turbulent. You know what I mean? So I don't have like this clear memory of it. It wasn't planned. It was never something I wanted to do. I was going to move to New York at the time. I got into a master's in luxury management. I was living in Ottawa at the time, and I'm like, I'm going to Ottawa, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be so dope. I like gave away all my stuff. I moved out of my townhouse. I quit my job. I'm going to New York. And then I found I was pregnant. And I was like, well, seemingly I've made a lot of bad decisions because I have no job. And I just like gave my 2 months notice and I have no job. Yeah. So I probably should move to a country with no health insurance. So I don't think I'm going to do that. And before I knew I was pregnant, I was planning on going to Uganda because I was hoping that like some of my uncles or someone could like pay my tuition. So I was hoping to go find like my parents died when I was a kid, but I was hoping to find my parents' siblings and like maybe they can help me pay. So if I'm pregnant, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? And then my sister was like, just go anyways. So I went to Uganda, and I was staying with my cousin, and we would just drive to her house, and she lives along the landfills along the way to her house. So I would just kind of see garbage on the street, and it's not like I'm seeing Uganda just like covered in garbage. It's not, you know. But I would see that, and then I would just kind of think like, what can you do with that garbage? And it was mostly agricultural, like our staple foods, matoke, which is green bananas. So I'm like, it's agriculture. You must be able to do something with it. So I would just kind of think about it, you know. Then I had my daughter, and I was home all the time by myself, and I would just read. And, you know, through lots of reading, I was like, we should make energy out of it. It seems a viable object. So it's like, how do you do that? I don't know. And I would just read. And
so what was your background? What did you study in
gosh.
college?
I studied public administration, which at the time, I wanted to be an agent when I was in university. Because all my girlfriends called me like stepmom. That's why I'm wearing my girlfriend's jewelry. Like even you came here and I'm like, oh, my girlfriend's a great makeup artist. Like I just like seeing people do what it is they are to like the gifts they have. So I was told that agents go to law school, and I was told that lawyers
like a secret agent, like an undercover.
No,
agent.
like an agent, like work like William Morris.
To
Yeah,
represent
no,
people.
I'm not like trying to have a secret.
I was like, you want to be in the like secret?
That'd be a bad
like
secret agent in the middle interview. Like, yeah, so I wanted I wanted to be like William Morris agent. So yeah, like they're lawyers, and then someone's like, well, lawyers study political science. So I started in political science, and I thought it was pretty boring. And then I went to Ottawa U, and at the time they just created public administration, that program, which is kind of weird because Ottawa's a government city, but whatever. And I just thought, I'm like, okay, I had like kind of a cool mix of courses. You can do psychology, you can do commerce. So that's what I studied. So at the time, it really made no sense because I used to work in fashion. But it's kind of funny now to see that like Bakulu Power and a lot of my not my messaging and a lot of just my beliefs is about like community and my specialization is in community intervention. So you're kind of like, oh, I guess I studied that for a reason, you know? So.
And so how do you make that step? So you're sitting in your apartment, you've just had a baby. Mm-hmm. How do you make the leap from that to creating a power company?
Well, the true answer is, again, it's not something I wanted to do. Like, I would apply for jobs and I would apply for daycare. I mean, I really have to thank the city of Toronto for not having a lot of daycare spaces for a company, because I never planned to like stay home for years with my daughter. I wanted her to go daycare and I wanted to go to work. I remember at the time, actually, when I had her, I really wanted to work for TIFF, which is like the Toronto International Film Festival. And because I used to work for like fashion weeks, and I'm like, I'm good at sponsorship, and I want to work at TIFF. Like, this is what I wanted to do, but like they never called me, and I didn't have daycare. And then I have a sister. She won't kill me. Well, I have a lot of sisters, so she'll know who I'm talking about. But I remember when I had my daughter, she's like, you got a couple minutes to talk about your kid, and then like, we don't care. Like, like kind of like, please don't be that kind of woman who can only talk about your kid. So it really stuck with me. So I would really read a lot, because I'm like, if I'm going to dinner, it's not like I went to work to add something to talk about. So I read the news a lot and I'd read a lot. So as I'm looking for daycare and stuff, I'm like, I can't let my brain go to mush, because my sisters are going to think I suck. Because all I can talk about is like, she ate this much food today. So I would just keep reading. I'd go back to like, okay, I have this idea about, I was thinking about this garbage in Uganda as I'm trying to like organize my life now with this kid. I don't want to just be depressed and like looking for jobs and like looking for daycare. I'm going to keep reading about that while I do it. So then it just kind of was like, maybe that's what God wants me to do, because like this isn't working, and like you apply for a job and you're like, I'm so overqualified for that. Like, you didn't even call me, like, seriously? But then I'm like, well, maybe this is what God wants me to do.
How did you do that? So you're sitting in Canada,
yeah,
but you're trying to form a company and register a company and all of that in Uganda.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah, well, because the company's not Canadian in any way. It's completely incorporated in Uganda. I first incorporated a charity in Canada. And I named after my daughter, and I had a logo and everything. And I was like, oh my God, here you pay $200. Like, I'm a businesswoman. You're not really, though. And then one day I had a conversation with someone, and she's like, what you're doing is much more suited to being a for-profit in Uganda. And I was like, yeah, how am I going to do that? Like, I live in Canada, lady. So I was like, what does she know? And I moved on. God bless her, because she's an amazing woman. But, and I just went back and have a charity. Like, I know how to raise money for that. And then I had another conversation with someone who kind of put another idea in my head. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess, if two people have told me this, it probably makes sense. So then I just started to think, okay, well, who do I know in Uganda who can help me put this together? One of my cousins is a lawyer, and I'm like, I need a lawyer. Like, literally, it's just like that. Then I asked the same cousin, I need an accountant. I asked the same cousin, what bank should I go to? I joked that this one cousin like should have some equity stake, because he put together a lot of my team. So just piece by piece, you find an accountant, you find a lawyer, then you find the bank, then you find.
And where do you find money? Because all of this takes money, and money to do, and building a mini grid takes money. How did you raise money?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm forever raising money. So if you have any, you can call me. But no, I mean, in the beginning, it's a family company, though. So my siblings we're all shareholders, all 6 of us, and my cousin too. So you bootstrap. It's like even though there's an interview and the person's like, so how much money did you have when you started? And I'm like, that's not what works. It's not like I was planting trees as a kid and like wearing hemp clothes and saving my allowance. Like, no, you realize like, okay, I gotta pay the lawyer $1,000. Guys, can you contribute to this $1,000 lawyer bill? Like, that's how it works. So that's how we've been going. And I mean, as things are changing now, but like we won 2 grants. Our CTO is one of Tony Alumelu's entrepreneurs from last year. So shout out to Tony Alumelu. We won D Prize this year, They're awesome. They're out of California and they're just wonderful. So, you know, that's been helpful. And I'm forever raising money.
And why is energy, power something that we should be talking about for, I mean, specifically here, we're talking about Uganda, but Africa as a continent, why is it still an issue for us?
Well, I think it's the only thing we should be talking about. You know, I think, like, so I look at the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm like, there really should only be one: power. The other ones can't happen if there's no power. Do you know what I mean? Why should we be talking about it? Because we need, like, we don't have it. You know, like, you look at Uganda, and Uganda, I think our electrification rate is like under 20%. And that's like for the city. When you know the whole country, most of the country is rural. So if you look at the rural area, it's like 10%. I mean, it just underscores all of, you know, human life as we know it, you know? So you go into forestry, you know, deforestation, then you go into, you know, women's everything, you know, women's safety, women's productivity, women's, what they call it, time poverty. Like, it goes into children, it just spills across every aspect of your life. And it's kind of one of those things where there's a lot of things you only notice you need when they're gone. Like, I heard you guys were saying something like that before earlier when you were setting up. You know, it's like you really take it for granted. Like, you don't ever think about your roads until you hit a pothole. You don't ever think about something until it's gone. So I think it's hard for people, you know, like at this side of the world, to imagine like not having electricity. You know, like, really, what does cooking dinner look like tonight when you don't have electricity?
So one of the things that I know when I was looking up Bakulu Power and everything that it does is a big part of what you do is, and a big part of what you talk about doing is renewable.
Yeah.
What does that mean and why is that important?
Well, I think, you look at Uganda. Uganda is beautiful, just geographical placement. You know, we're right on the equator. It has probably the best solar radiance in the world. So to not harness it, that doesn't make sense. You know, and it's a good time for Uganda with solar because they just created a feed-in tariff a couple of years ago. So a number, even actually, kind of to answer your last question, is policies sometimes can be a bit slow. You know, so, and I don't want to blame, because I've been in on policy discussions, and I think a lot of governments are trying, they're working to update things. So I think that's been a bit of a challenge. But why renewable? I think it's, you know, it's cleaner. It's what we need, you know?
Now, I heard a speech that you gave. So you've
I know.
had a lot of speeches.
I'm like, which one?
I know you've been speaking at so many places, but you recently gave a keynote address in Berlin.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that you said, like, literally stopped. I was shocked. I was really shocked. And I think you gave a stat of something like by 2015, if we don't
2050.
Sorry, 2050.
So I was going to say, girl.
2015, we're done there. By
confused,
2050,
yeah.
if nothing is done, Uganda will have zero forest coverage.
Yeah.
How is that?
Yeah.
Like, why is that? Why is that happening so
Because
rapidly?
there's no electricity. I mean, what a time to be alive. We are witnessing tremendous technological advances. But how do we get them to the people who need them the most? The people who have contributed the least to climate change. The fishermen in Lake Victoria, whose entire livelihood will be wiped away. I mean, I'm an optimist, really. I'm not doom and gloom. I really am very optimistic. But sometimes you have to look at the cold, hard facts. By 2050, if nothing is done, in Uganda, we will have zero forest cover. Zero. This isn't our grandkids' problem. This is our problem. In the speech, I mentioned how like 80% of the energy needs back home are for cooking fuel. And that's another thing which has delayed our, not delayed, but is kind of can explain our, I don't know, lack of progress, I don't know what to call it, is sometimes people aren't talking about the right things. But I might say the right things, but what I consider to be the right things. But yeah, it's cooking fuel. Like, I mean, we're developing 3 grids in a district called Buvuma District. It's the only district in Uganda that has no electricity, and it has no forest. It's gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many people, so with the grids that you're developing, so you said 3 grids, how many people would that serve? What's the population of the area?
Oh, about 10,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how much does it cost? Like, is it something that's extremely costly to put in place?
To develop?
Grids? Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's infrastructure, you know? I mean, I think when you think about solar, you think about electricity, most people think about pay as you go. So I think for some people it's kind of like, well, where is it? Like, you've been talking about this forever, girl, you know? But I'm like, this is infrastructure, and there's a big difference. In pay as you go, I'm not knocking it. I remember, I was funny, when we were in Germany, actually, I was on a panel. I just said something about kind of like, you know, people are very used to that pay as you go model. It's been proven it works. And I wasn't slighting it, but the guy beside me was like, well, about minigrids. And I was like, oh my God, did I say something about you? Like, I'm not knocking it. They're just two different things. So people are very much used to that. And it's something that, you know, you buy the equipment, you put it in, you see it, you feel it, you touch it, it's real tangible. This is infrastructure, so it's very different. It takes longer to develop. Well, there is a development process.
Right.
That doesn't have one. And it's more expensive, but it's certainly far less expensive than extending your grid. It's certainly far less expensive than felling all your forests, and far less expensive than what's going to happen when you have no forest and then there's a storm, and then, you know, what happens to your environment after that, you know? That's why there's some parts of the world where it's tropical season and you're terrified. It rains and you're like, oh my God, it's going down. You have no forest, you have no trees.
And how long does it take? Like, so, like, when do you think, like, the first people are actually going to be able to turn on the switches and have electricity in that area?
Well, we're just about done. It's kind of funny. I feel like one day I'll listen to my interviews and feel like I'm always like, we're just about done development. Because I remember saying this at Yale, and that was like 2 months ago, but we are just about done our development process. And I mean, we've gotten through, like, we've been, I'm trying to think when we got the agreement with the government. It's been less than a year and a half, really, that we've been in the development process. And for a lot of companies, it takes at least like 7 years to get where we are. Yeah. So, I mean, we're hoping to start construction, but like before the end of this year. So.
And what's that process been like? So you didn't have a background in energy. You come into this industry. You live part of the time in Canada, but you also, you know, spend part of your time in Uganda. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with governments. Has the government been very receptive to third parties coming in to help with the energy situation?
Well, yeah, but I'm also a local company. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the thing that people who forget. They hear my accent, they forget. I'm Uganda. I got a Ugandan passport. Like, my company, we pay our taxes in Uganda, so the government's very supportive. And I think that is also worth noting, that a lot of us from back home feel like our governments like don't support local companies. They only support the foreign companies. So I got to give it to them for even allowing us to enter and to work and develop part of Uganda as a Ugandan company. So, yeah.
And what's that experience been for you as a woman, and then particularly as a Black woman in an industry that I would imagine is very dominated by men?
I'm always an outlier. Do you know what I mean? Like, so, like, I've always been an outlier. So I don't even really notice that now I'm an outlier. I've just always am. Do you mean, like, I just think growing up, like, my life never looked like anyone's that I know? Do you know, like, so I don't really have that in me to be like, oh my God, I'm standing out. I always have. But it's okay. I mean, you go to these conferences. Like, when I was in Berlin, I mean, it was really cool. The government invited me, which was really awesome. And yeah, everyone's like super old and, you know, looks a certain way, and that's fine, you know.
I like that. That's fine.
It just kind of is what it is.
So speaking of being an outlier, I obviously listened to a lot of your stuff and read a lot of stuff. And in an interview, you described yourself as, these were your exact words. You said, I'm an outlier, a young woman, a local developer, a refugee, an entrepreneur, and a mother. Yeah. Unpack that for me, what all of that means.
Oh, I mean, it's just that I'm just probably never what someone expects. like in any room. Do you know what I mean? I'm in Uganda, I'm not really Ugandan. I'm in Canada, I'm not really Canadian. Do you mean? I'm like at my daughter's school, I'm not married. You know, like I'm with the moms, I'm the youngest one. I'm with engineers, I'm not an engineer. So it's kind of always like I'm not really like fitting the mold of what's going on, you know?
Do you think that helps you though, being different, you don't come in with, you know, with any preconceptions or knowledge of what you're doing?
I mean, maybe. I see it as God's design. You know, I can't say it helps me because we don't have like, I can't see the alternate universe where I am those things and see how I'd fare in that universe. So I don't know. It just kind of is what it is. I think I definitely maybe have a different outlook or a different presentation of things than other people. I mean, one thing I would like to hope is to make a topic that's really quite boring, quite frankly, and kind of depressing, you know, not so boring and depressing. So, I mean, I think maybe that might help me not being a, you know, who you'd expect. But it's interesting though. I can always tell when someone's like, you know, or I'll joke, like I like when these guys came, I'm like, let's just talk about life today. And you can see we're like, okay, lady. But I find for being perfectly honest, I feel the most other around African women.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I just don't think I'm always what they think I should be.
So let's talk actually about the fact that you are African, but obviously you have a Canadian accent.
Yeah.
How did that come about? How did you end up in Canada?
I was born in the middle of war. You know, I was born smack dab in the middle of war. And I was born in Kenya because my family, I think even literally ran to Kenya maybe. And we came here as refugees. So I grew up here.
And what was that like? So you're born in Kenya, which is a foreign country to you. You moved to Canada as refugees. What was that refugee experience?
I was a kid.
So you don't.
Do you mean you'd have to ask my older sisters?
Yeah. How old were you when you moved to Canada?
I was really small. I was a kid. So, you know, I didn't know what it, like, you know what I mean? Like, I even think a lot of things are the mark of good parenting. I think like I think now as a parent and observing other people and seeing like other people talk about their parents, I realized like I had a really good mom. Like my dad died when I was very small. So we were raised by my mom, and I'm like, yeah, my mom was really like, she was awesome. You know, like I think that's a mark of good parenting to not put your adult burdens on a child. You know, like I never grew up like, you're different and everyone's gonna treat, like I never grew up like that. We're there, like that's what it is. You know, I look back now and I'm like, my brother and I are the youngest, and one of my girlfriends and her brother were the only Black kids in the school that I can look at now as an adult and go, that was kind of different. But as a kid, you know, you'd obviously have the kid who's like, you taste like chocolate and I'm vanilla. You know, that's just whatever how kids are. But it was never so much of like, you're different, you're different, you're different, you're different, you're different, you know? My mom was serious when it came to report cards. You know, you better have gotten these in the 90s. But, you know, so I never grew up like with the notion of a refugee. I didn't know what it was. I think it was even probably just very recently that I kind of realized like, my papers say stateless, you know? Why is that? So, yeah.
Would you say that's the greatest gift your mother gave you? What would you say was the greatest gift your mother gave you? Besides life, of course.
See, this is what I want to talk about. My mom. No one's ever asked me that in my life. I think the greatest gift my mom gave me and my siblings is just herself. She was just a good example. You know, my mom was very slow to anger. I can't even really even count how many times I've seen her angry. Like, no, sorry, I could count. I use the question that way. Like, my mom didn't get angry. You know, like she didn't yell. She was very patient. Like, you know, there's 6 of us. So I remember being a kid and like you get a box of popsicles, and it's like either 6 of you, so you probably get like 2. You know, but I'm like, I'm like, I want more, you know, like, and things like, well, we'll buy more popsicles. That's what life's for. But just, I bought it to eat it. Like my mom was just, she was just really a calm person. And as an adult, now I can look and be like, yeah, that must be really stressful. You know, your husband dies, you have all these kids, you're in a new country, you know, like that must be incredibly stressful. You're not with your family. But my mom never put any of that on us. Whereas I see a lot of people, even just like my own friends, I see in their relations with their family, or even as a mother, I see other parents and their kids who put their adult burdens on their kid. And I don't think it's appropriate. I can see how you can do it if you're overwhelmed, you know, someone judge you in that way. But mom wasn't like that. She just was like so graceful and must have been under the most incredible pressure in life, you know, pressure and just like trauma. But you would never know. She was just like the most graceful, like the kindest person, pleasant, and incredibly resilient, you know?
What is it that you would most, or what are you most proud of that you wish your mom and your dad were here to see that you've accomplished?
For what they accomplished, I don't think I've accomplished anything that fantastic compared to what they accomplished. Do you mean so I don't really, I haven't done anything that I think I would be like, oh my God, I did this, because they were so accomplished. But I mean, I think my mom would like how I'm raising my daughter. You know, me and Naomi are like homies. Like I sort of, everyone I do business with is like, how's my daughter? How's the print? Like it's, you swear everyone knows her. You go to the UN, they know the baby, you know? The heads of state know the baby. So I think my mom would be proud of how I raised my daughter. I mean, I think my mom, of all of us, would be proud that we're all still a unit. You know, I think that both my parents would be proud that we even have a company in Uganda, you know? And that the six of us are still a unit.
Why was it important for you to go back to Uganda to do something in Uganda?
Remember, I was going back because I want my tuition paid. If we're really, you know, I don't want to sit here on some high horse that like my heart has always burned for. Let's be honest, I wanted my tuition paid because I wanted to go to Manhattan. But, you know, as you kind of start to get into it and you're reading and you're kind of finding the real mission of what you're doing, that's where my parents are from, you know? That's where we're from. I have tons of cousins, like my family's still there.
What's the impact that you want to have in the world? So you
These
said,
are heavy questions. Oh my God,
you
I don't
said
know.
that you don't think you've done anything yet that is worthy of your. I'm sure your mom would look at you and and your dad would just be so proud of what you're trying to do.
Okay,
right?
there we go.
And so, what is the impact that you want to have in the world?
What would I, if I don't want to, I would just want to, like improve people's lives. And even if the way I see like energy, it's removing like a burden that will help people improve their lives. I don't know if that makes any sense. You know, it's like, now I don't have to walk for 6 hours. Like now I can do what I want to do. You're like, now I can, even the people who work with us, like our team, it's like, they're all brilliant. You know, like you look, like a funny thing about back home is like, I don't know, I was talking about this the other day. I talk a lot apparently, but I know who I was talking to, and she's awesome. But I was just talking about the difference between like growing up here and then, Uganda, and how here in Canada we have like that like entry level job market, where you could be like a telemarketer for like our big telecom Rogers, and like you can live. Yeah. Like you'll be all right. You can go work at the fast food place or the mall, and like I got my first job when I was I think like 13 because I wanted this pea coat my sister had that I so that exists. Whereas back home that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. There's not, we can go into many macroeconomic reasons why, but so there's people who are on our team who are quite frankly just way smarter than me. They all are, to be honest. And so that's kind of an impact I like to see that, these are such brilliant minds that for many reasons are not being utilized. And for me, I always say, I'm like, I want to speak the PayPal mafia. You know, Bakulu Power does not need to be the be-all, end-all of your life. If it can be a springboard for even someone on my team, like, don't go and be my rival, because my lawyers you can work that out. But if it's a springboard for them to, you know, build their own network and their own dream that they have that could be completely different, and go, you start PayPal, then you go, you make LinkedIn. You start PayPal, you go, you make Tesla. You know what I mean? Like that PayPal mafia, that I find interesting. And just to see that, like, you know, like most of us on the team have small kids. You know, like I just want people, you know, people have a job. You can pay your kids' school fees. You can take your kid to the dentist. Like just those really kind of basic things that we can take for granted here. Because our government will make sure that, you know, whatever happens, they will take care of that. So you can go forward and be like, okay, you know, maybe I'll go back to school. It's that area of life that I'm interested in. And that's what I would like to be remembered for, I guess. And for being fun, I don't know.
Of course, you're fun. You said, again, in one of your interviews, that this is one of your favorite quotes. And I'm going to read the quote. It's a little bit of a long one, but it was just really interesting. And I'd love for you to say why you said this is one of your favorite quotes. And the quote was, "The master in the art of living makes little distinction between his work and his play, his labor and his leisure, his mind and his body, his information and his recreation, his love and his religion. He simply pursues his vision of excellence at whatever he does, leaving others to decide whether he's working or playing. To him, he's always doing both."
Isn't that amazing? When you're an entrepreneur, it's all the same. You work nonstop. And the people you meet, like everything is your business. So it's like everyone you're kind of meeting or surrounding yourself with, if you're really separating them from business and personal, like you're going to be very sad, you know, like, you know, so it kind of all becomes one. Like I read this one book. I love this book called Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. I'm like,
I've heard it. I've never read it.
Please read it.
Recommended.
Like it actually changed a lot of how I think. I'm obsessed with it. And it was kind of his thing too, that like, you got to enjoy it because you're in it so deep. You know, you gotta, if there's some people you can become friends with, like, that's great, you know, like, that's what you're in. So, and just me personally, sometimes I was talking with my girlfriends and I was really stressed out about something. And, like, I felt like I was stressed out, but I'm kind of like an easygoing person. So it's very easy to think I don't ever get stressed out, but, like, I do. But then that quote kind of made me think, like, it's kind of an interesting charm to that, to where people don't really know if are you working, are you playing, like they don't really know anymore. I find there's some kind of charm to that, because if it's like, if I met you, like, I mean, I think we should turn the camera on you, like we're friends. Like if when I met you, if I'd been like, yeah, Lucia, you know, I've been so like, you know, we can't be friends, this is business, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today. So it's kind of like this interesting line where it all kind of becomes one, because I mean, my daughter's so sick of Bakulu Power. Like she probably is like, but then the funny thing is I was on a field trip with her school and the other kids were like, we heard that Naomi owns some of your company. And then I said, yeah, I gave her 1%. They're like, see, it's not like she owns the whole thing. So it's kind of funny when you get to see, like, as much as I see, like, maybe she's sick of it, in her brain, you know, there's some like pride there where she tells her friends that, you know, she even told me she wants to go by Bakulumpagi-Wamala. And she'll say, did you change my name yet? Mommy, did you change it? You know? So so I said to say that like it goes into her life, even what she's talking about at school. So there has to be some enjoyment in it. Like that's our world, that's our thing, it's my other baby, you know?
And what do you want? So you have this beautiful daughter, Naomi, who literally is your mini-me. She looks just like you. And she's the smartest, funniest, charming young lady. What do you want her to learn by looking at what you're doing?
Well, that's when I can answer. So I mean, I tell my parents, I'm like, God, I can answer those. My daughter, I mean, what I want Naomi to learn is you can be anything, which I do believe. I say that as though I don't really believe it. I do believe anyone can be anything. I think some people have very strong gifts, you know, that they are just naturally inclined to excel at, you know. But what I want her to learn is that just try. Just try, you know. I make mistakes all the time. You know, I am like forever the idiot in the room. I am always the dumbest person. Like, and the thing, my daughter's actually smarter than I am. I'm not just saying that because I'm her mom. Like, she actually is. It's like a fact. My whole family knows it. So I just want her to learn, like, just try. Be willing to be stupid. Be willing to be embarrassed. If you're not willing to be embarrassed, you're not willing to be great. They're the same thing, you know. I just want her to try.
You talked about balance and about doing things that make you happy. What brings you the most joy?
My gosh. I like to see, I honestly, the thing that really, really makes me happy is seeing people like live their dreams. Yeah. Like that's why they all call me my girlfriends all call me a stage mom. Even one of my cousins, actually, is a guy. And he's always like, Lucy, when I'm ready, you can be my manager. When I'm ready, you'll be my manager. Because I'm like, do it, try, let's go. Like, yeah, like that actually excites me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are you afraid of?
I've got a really good Kanye West quote I could throw in right here, you know? Shake's part in Ghost Town is just perfect. We could put right in here, you know? And feel kind of free. What am I afraid of? It can't be nothing, but I can't think of anything at the moment.
You just said one of the greatest lessons that you want your daughter to learn is to try. And part of just trying is letting go of the fear and or being afraid but doing it anyway. Because I think that I don't know where I read it, but it's like, you know, it's like courage. I don't know who said it, but like courage isn't the absence of fear. You know, like I think people get confused, you know, and you can think Barack Obama was born eloquent. You know, you think Beyonce never got nervous. Like, I just don't want to put that out into the world that like, I'm afraid of nothing. I've never been, like, I don't want to have that kind of macho thing. What makes me say that I'm not really afraid of anything at the moment is that, again, I guess it's just the condition of my life. Like when I had my daughter, you know, like it's just me and her, you know, and there's something kind of oddly like emancipating about people seeing your life kind of fall apart. You know, there's nothing we both start laughing at. It's oddly an emancipating thing. Because you're like, I don't have to really pretend anymore. You've seen it. You've seen me. I was in court. You know, I was in family court or I was whatever. Like, so that's where I say, like, I'm not really afraid of anything. I don't feel like I have any, like, airs to put on or, you know, because anyone who really knows me knows, like, yo, like, she's been through it. Like, you know, my mom died when I was in high school. Like, a lot of these really, I've had a lot of, like, tough, traumatic things happen, which kind of make you feel like, hey, well, I didn't die. So, you know, that didn't kill me. You know, that didn't destroy me. I recovered from that embarrassment or whatever. So, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
The best advice was to operate from a level of good enough. It's funny I could answer that question so easily. Yeah, I remember somebody early, where was I? I was volunteering at the Center for Social Innovation. And it was part of my, like, I want to do something, I don't know how. And I used to take my daughter with me. You imagine this kid was really born for this, you know. I would sit at the front desk once a week in exchange for office space. And I would bring her with me. And she would be there for a whole day. God bless her soul. But there was a man there. His name was Alan, actually. I've got to look up his email. But he told me, he's like, operate from a level of good enough. Your website will never be perfect. You'll never really like it. You know, you'll never really like, I mean, you'll get to a point where you can hire people and, you know, but he's like, you will just be stuck if you're like, oh, it's not perfect, it's not perfect. He's like, you know, if it's good enough, go live. And then you'll look back later and there'll be a new good enough. And then a new good enough. So.
That is great advice.
Yeah.
And who inspires you?
My parents. I can't say Kanye West because that'd be obvious. But no, my parents.
Why?
And my siblings. As an adult, I really try and understand like what they must have gone through and like the courage, you know, it took. And I think it's inspirational. You know, the courage to go through tough stuff and still be a pleasant person. Because you can go through something tough and survive and just be miserable as hell, you know? And it's fine, you know, I'm sure it's rooted in something, it's valid, it's real. But there's something special when you can still be a pleasant, positive, kind, you know, easygoing person. So yeah, my parents inspire me, my siblings inspire me. They're all brilliant, you know?
And we have a picture of your parents right here. And I want to know when you look at this picture, what do you see?
My parents, I look at it literally every day. It's on my desk. Even my brother, I think my brother is the same one on his, I think most of us have it, you know, on our desk. It's just, you see your parents, you know? And it's, I guess it's cool living the same in a unit because my father died when I was, I think, like 2 or 3. So I knew my mom. So it's kind of cool to see the unit. Like, this is, you know, this is who made me. This is who, you know, they're a unit. It's cool. You know, it's another thing where if you remember, like in my life, I didn't grow up seeing a marriage. Like I didn't grow up seeing that. My mom died when I was a teenager, so I didn't even, you know, become an adult with a parent to really kind of get a lot of things. So it's cool to see.
Where can people find information about you, about Bakulu Power, and what you're doing?
We can go to our website, bakulupower.com. Also Facebook, which I've not been that good at updating, but I'm going to. I actually was editing a commercial when you came that we filmed with one of our clients. We're also on Twitter at like Bakulu Power, same with Facebook, just Bakulu Power. And yeah, I mean, you can go on my Twitter. I tweet a lot. And my Twitter is Lucia Wamala. Yeah.
We'll link to all of those. We'll provide links for everything. Final question. So this platform and what I'm doing with this initiative is called Ndini, which in my mother tongue, Shona, means I am. And I truly believe in the power of what you speak about yourself really helps to shape your destiny. So if you had to finish that sentence, I am.
It's doing the top of my head. The first thing I thought was awesome, but it's because I'm with my kids so much. I'd say powerful. I am powerful.
You are.
Aw, thank you.
You are. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lucia. I'm so glad that we finally made it happen. You're not off in Morocco and here and Italy and south of France.
I was in Morocco in like 2 weeks actually.
Every time I'm like, where are you in the world? Like, isn't that how I start my messages to you? Where in the world are you today? Because you travel so much. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
I'm totally humbled. I'm totally flattered. You know?
And
thank you.
Continued success. What you're doing is an amazing thing that will literally change people's lives.
Thank you. That is like the whole thing. I think it's transformative.
Yeah.
Which I think it's really cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.